Hi, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in the tableau building game Kavango. I just finished playing this a few hours ago with 4 players and had a great time playing it. It's a drafting game where you're drafting cards that look like this, and you are playing those cards if you meet their requirements. There's no cost. You are just trying to meet their requirements and play them into your tableau. And when you do that, the icons on the cards help you play other cards that want those requirements before you can play them. So actually, I didn't even think about this when thinking about my favorite mechanism, but I think it's kind of neat that you're not ever spending any resources to play these cards. It's all about meeting requirements on the cards as you put them into your nature reserve. My favorite, I have a couple of mechanisms to talk about because I really did enjoy my play of this game. But my number one mechanism is related to this drafting mechanism. So you get this big hand of cards. You're going to choose one, and you're going to play that card. But what happens if you can't actually play that card? What happens if I really want this bush buck here, but I can't play it yet? But I know I want to play it later. This is where the game adds this element of these big player mats. So you can see these big player mats where you can put a lot of cards on here. On the far right is this area called the sanctuary. So this isn't even really technically part of your nature reserve. Rather, these are 3 slots where you can place cards that you want to play later, but you can't play yet. Instead, you just put it in that slot. You can hold 3 different cards this way. And then later on, when you do meet these requirements, without doing anything special, you just move that card anywhere into your reserve. It doesn't matter where, you just move it into your reserve. I like this for a few specific reasons. One, it takes a little pressure off of you to make a decision right away. You do have to make a decision about which card you draft, but maybe you just you want to draft this card and you're just not quite ready to draft it. The sanctuary is there for that purpose. Maybe it takes a little pressure off also to do calculations 100% correct, because sometimes you might draft this card, be ready to play it, and then realize, oh wait, I thought I had that icon, I don't actually have that. You don't have to undo anything. If that happens, you just put it in your sanctuary. You have it right there as a backup. It lets you plan ahead for certain cards. It means that you don't have to suboptimally draft. So if you have a card that you don't really want, say you don't want this tree rat, you can play it, but you don't want it. You don't really want it. So instead of taking this card that you don't want, you can just you can get the card that you actually want and put it in your sanctuary. That's really nice too. In addition to all this, also, if the time comes where you're like, okay, I'm never going to play this card. It didn't work out. I can't get these icons. I'm not going to play it. You can discard it from your sanctuary to get a currency in the game. You spend money on other things, not these cards. So that is a nice backup to have. For all those reasons, I really like what the sanctuary element adds to Kavango. Now, I mentioned these icons that you need to play cards. These icons appear on the cards themselves. You can see these icons. Many of these actually have the same icons, but there's actually 11 different icons that look like this that appear on the cards. There are 4 core icons that show up, especially early in the game, and you really need these icons, and they look like this. Here's the tree, here's a grassland, here's an insect and a fish. You need these for a lot of different cards in the game, and sometimes in a drafting game like this, you just may not see the cards that you need. This is my second favorite mechanism in Kavango, that if you really need one of these icons and you aren't seeing them on the cards that you're drafting, you can instead spend $4 for currency in this game, for money I think they call it, to gain one of these rewilding cards. That's what this is. This is a rewilding card. So these aren't shuffled. These aren't random. There's just there's a stack of these cards. You can see it's double-sided with all 4 of these icons. You could just spend the $4 to get this icon when you really need it. And it's there from now on. You have that icon from then on. So I really like this in games like this that you need certain requirements to play the cards that you want to play. This is a really nice backup to have those icons. And even beyond the backup, if you are just good at generating money in this game, you can generate money and buy these cards instead of drafting cards, and that way you get 2 things. You get this card plus the card that you've actually drafted. I really like this. The last mechanism I wanted to mention is that this is a game, again, about hitting certain thresholds. Like this bushbuck wants you to have 3 trees, but there are also these other thresholds. There are 3 different types of icons that look like this that are about protecting your nature reserve. And that's something that you can spend money on the game to have, for example, level 1 protection so that you can have this bush book in your reserve. There are different levels here. There's some cards that don't have any level. You don't need any levels here to play these simple cards, and others that have higher levels, 2s, 3s, even 4s. 2 of those categories of things are under your control and only impact you. They're for your specific reserve. You are paying money to upgrade your aspect of that reserve. However, there's a third one, which is kind of global conservation, the ecology of the world, that everyone pays into, and it impacts all players. I thought this was really, really clever. That I am sure there are many games like this that have these thresholds where you need to have this level to be able to play this card. But typically, they're only for your tableau. They only impact you. I really like in Kavango that there's one such category, one threshold, where all players contribute to it. And so that means if a bunch of players are not contributing to it, it will be more difficult. And it does scale by player count. I don't have the visual here, but it scales by player count. But it is really, really nice to have other players contributing to it. So even if you aren't putting too much in, maybe other players are helping out and they might help you reach that threshold. Or you're all doing it together somewhat evenly throughout the game. That's really nice. I thought that was a nice twist. So yeah, those are my 3 favorite mechanisms in the game, with the Sanctuary on the player mat being my number 1 pick. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you can think of any other games that have mechanisms like these, let me know in the comments below. Or if you have a favorite mechanism in Kavango, love to hear about that too. Thanks.